Firstly, Tashi Dele, greetings to all of my Dharma friends. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are happy.
아니 단어지 간주 뒤세 뒤뒤 듣는 로르그 거로버게 사시에서 넘어도 조조르지바 럼바지도 마지로 야레트네 드린 거 중에 있어.
So today we will continue with, perhaps we could say, the Lamrim outlines. So the Lamrim, or the stages. In any case, we are continuing with sort of a step-by-step, a point-by-point explanation of that.
아니 다 드리더니 조데 시분지기까지 다 덴바시 세네다 어당한 저기 대시가 다니 대시리아 시라고 조데 덴바시 사지 요아다디고리.
So today, in terms of what I am explaining, it's one of the points of the Lamrim related to the four Arya truths, or the four noble truths. And we could say that these four noble truths are like the very basis, the very foundation from which we can work towards a lasting happiness.
다더니 뒤는 돈보 다니 덴바시 눈에 등화 덴바 군주 덴바 고델로 데스니 시여바 눈에 다 드리죠 등화 덴바고.
So then within those four noble truths, you have true sufferings, true origins, true cessations, and two paths. So today, I'll be focusing on the first of these four noble truths, which is true sufferings.
아니 소지주 된데 이나 요탄이 도치 치tombo tombote 등화 시바 샤쇼 세네 치tombo데 테레스 하나 스칼라.
So the first teaching, or you could say the first piece of advice that Buddha Shakyamuni gave after his enlightenment, was related to these four noble truths. The first piece of advice was suffering should be known.
나로솔 대신이네 지그요나 아니 땐데 대화 지그요나 아니 파과야가 매바조 그야 강행이네 등모시 그러마도 강행이네 등모시네 드네 대파 매바조야 내가 세마토나 아니 대신이네 템보더라고요 말이지.
So in terms of understanding suffering, this is very important, because if we want to achieve a lasting or a stable happiness, then we need to be able to get rid of what is opposing it, which is the causes of suffering. If we are not able to know and understand that as a first step, then there will be no achievement of that lasting happiness we seek.
능화 덴바게 내가 지시나 코인에서 대화 보시는 거래. 코인에서 대화 보시소나 다딘니까 했더니 소속기 보임비가 저하대와 하네. 벌써 수바치 덴보치는 것도 그래서.
Based upon understanding the suffering of suffering, we can understand the nature that we abide in within samsara, or within cyclic existence. Then, based upon a profound understanding of these different types of suffering, we can see how our current situation is temporarily happy. We can understand the temporary happiness.
아니 다 좋았더니 그냥 거기서는 그야 해상가족들이 거기서는 망고 주기.
And so also it was requested that this topic be approached from the perspective of meditation. So then at this point we will begin the meditation session.
리두세 rum바스 전에 텔레 진이 되어이나 아니 첩파 좀 맞춰서 나한테 저거
So please put your body and mind in a relaxed state, and it's just like if we think of a body of water. If the body of water is uncontaminated and still, then we can see everything on the bottom of the surface. So just develop this intention that I'm not going to think about all sorts of different things. I'm just going to try to place my body and mind in a relaxed, calm state. And then think that in this temporary situation where I have this human body, where I possess this meaningful human intelligence, I will definitely strive to work towards achieving a real happiness. In order to be able to reach that real happiness, however, I need to understand the basis of the problems, or perhaps not problems, but I need to understand the reality of this situation of samsara, cyclic existence. So within that situation of suffering, one of the main points that expresses this is the true sufferings. So what are the teachings on the true sufferings indicating? There are many different points related to true sufferings. We could talk about true sufferings from the point of view of the outer, and true sufferings from the point of view of the inner. We could also speak about suffering from the point of view of 3 points, or 3 types of suffering. The suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the compounded or all-pervasive suffering. The stomach ache, the headaches, those forms of suffering that we experience, these are the first type, the suffering of suffering. But when we speak of true sufferings, the suffering of suffering is not the main point we're looking at. The suffering of change is the second type. This is speaking of the happinesses that we experience within samsara. We think that they are something that is going to be lasting. However, because these happinesses of samsara change, because they are in a state of change, then they can eventually lead to difficulties and problems. But even that suffering of change is not the main type of suffering that we want to focus on eliminating. Well, then what did the Buddha mean? If he didn't mean those 2 things, what did the Buddha mean when he said that suffering should be known? Is that something that we experience or not? And if we do, then what is it that he was pointing to? This all-pervasive suffering is pointing mainly, we're talking mainly about these 5 aggregates. So in terms of what these are, the first of these would be the form aggregate. So we could think about our body here. So the suffering related to these aggregates is what is known as the all-pervasive, compounded suffering. And because this all-pervasive suffering is like the foundation from which all of the other sufferings and difficulties arise, it is the main one that we discuss. But you speak of this as true sufferings related to the aggregates, one of which is form or this human body. But it is also said that the body is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Why this paradox?
예 대가샤네 따와이나 오 코피체 도타와이나 다 메일린데라 되네 내가 옆에서 제바이나 내도 녀모로 롱타야 내가 뭐지 내가 셰토야 이자 세트리가 차네레스.
So the reason for this is if we look from the positive side or from the side of the qualities of this human body, if we have this human body, this human rebirth, and we use it in the correct way, engage in the correct kind of endeavor, then it can be the basis for achieving freedom from karma and affliction.
딜레가 마제네 나로스 지본델 차 나사디 텔라테네 지본델 차네라 저바치미 오기 마송알라 송아 따바마이 발라 따바 디 지닌자네라 레몬보 사야는 거야레스.
However, if we don't use this human rebirth correctly, due to the grasping at the self or the I and the associated attachment that we have to this human form, because of excessive attachment to our body, because of perceiving what is impermanent as being permanent and what is unclean as being clean, we engage in all sorts of actions. We're compelled to engage in actions that accumulate unwholesome karma.
소소소 시워치는 따와이나 엔데테 도토야레스 가르스 말았죠. 소소 지볼을 차네라 텔라테네 레몬보 사야레스.
And if you look at your own situation clearly, you'll probably be able to see this, that because of excessive self-attachment, because of attachment to this physical form and body, there's been so many decisions and actions that we've done that have been accumulations of negative karma.
오 데노티 아레 조망가 로스 할레베 조마 비타분 저데 데노티 아레스.
And that's because we perceive this body as being something very important, clean and beautiful, this inflated sense of it.
다디니까 나로서 론도론다와 코바스도 세이나요. 레도니 무니 월요아이자 피모나데 아니 누가데메 뭐
However, it is just a temporary room, this human body, and because ourselves and also all of the types of beings that inhabit samsara, for them, these five aggregates are arising due to karma and affliction, therefore they are suffering.
레도 니모니 월 룸메니 데바 카제 데바이나 코 타마타마코
And if we continue to remain under karma and affliction, as long as we remain under the control of karma and affliction, we will achieve no freedom. Whenever the five aggregates arise due to that, they will eventually lead to problems and difficulties. So what we need to do is give rise to a mind comprehending on the basis of this truth the deep faults of samsara, the drawbacks of samsara, and then give a mind that strives towards liberation, thinking, I must be free from samsara. It will not be all right until I am free. While I have this human rebirth in my hands, I must really work on bringing forth a mind that definitely strives towards liberation. I will do this.
소설리도 시야를 롱지 도서는 소설 된다 이현지 된다 가지에 부서 줘야 보다 더 그랬더니 계속 침발해 놓았어.
If I can achieve this own freedom for my own body and mind, then imagine what I could do to contribute to the welfare, to the happiness of others.
뭐야?
So we'll pause there.
어다 디지털 지레 생각도 다 드리죠. 덴바시 눈에랑 알아서 밥 매와줘야 돼. 뭐지 마시나? 아니는 빼는 답해 봐이는 다시 회사가 시대 아마거나 드니다 다시 차트가 안 했으니까 그래.
So Geshe said that's the end of our short meditation, and so we're teaching on the Four Noble Truths. We start with true sufferings. That's because we need to identify what we need to get rid of, what we need to eliminate. If we don't know that, we can't make progress. It would just be like trying to shoot an arrow without knowing where the target is.
아니 지금부터 봐서 그랬더니 야 무슨 거야. 소설 내가 쉽게 샤리오 봐이나. 엄마한테 나를 배대 봐이나. 아니 약간 가디나 고메 와차 하면 돼.
So there's another saying many holy beings have stated that when you are having the obstacle dispelling torma, right, do not send it into your own house, right? Because if you send it into your own house, the problem will stay. You have to send it in the right direction.
다 드리지 자서야 소소솔 뭐지 뭐야 보디 옆에 가야라. 코로 물리 코로 당길라 반노지 코와이 코일리레 되니나요. 델라테네 코와도 만데 일리 데고 같이 뭐지 아이자 가제 소소소 템버지 같이 뭐랜디.
So then within this human life, we have to take the most of it. And even though we have this human body, which is in samsara, which is under the control of samsara, we can use this human body, if we strive correctly, to achieve a body that is completely separate from samsara.
아니 로르 내서 다 다들 노지가를 이나요. 또 뭐지 그거 돈은 이제 뭐 손으로 드네요. 담아 대에서 죽었다고 대에서 가서 뜯어서 대 때문에 리치는 너나들이 갈래 된데 말은 또 그래서
So Geshe is also just explaining that in terms of these meditations on the Lamrim, on the stages of the path, first we do analytical meditation where we think about the reasons to develop a conviction, and then once you develop that, you can spend a little bit of time on placement meditation, single-pointedly focusing on the topic. This is the way to get better and progress. So thank you very much. This is the end of our short session. Please, everybody, cultivate well. 다시